Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. In this session, we will gonna explore what SQL is, why it is so important, and how it forms the foundation of working with databases. So let's get started. Here is an overview of what we will cover today. First, we will start a simple introduction to SQL. Then, we will talk about why SQL is so important in modern database management. After that, we will look at the basic structure of SQL, and then we will wrap up this session by introducing some essential SQL commands like select, from, and where. Before jumping into commands, let's first understand SQL at a higher level. So in this session, we will discuss what SQL actually stands for, take a brief look at its history and evolution, and discuss its core purpose in managing data. So, what SQL is exactly? SQL stands for Structured Query Language, which is used to manage relational database efficiently using all kinds of data operations. With SQL, you could create data, read data, update data, and delete rows in the database systems, which is called as CRUD. And another important advantage is that SQL provides a standard ways to communicate with lots of database systems, use like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server Management Studios, and Oracle. So this standardization is one of the reasons why SQL has still remained so widely used for decades. Now let's talk about the history of SQL. So SQL originated in the earlier 1970s at IBM, originally named it as SQL, based on the relational database history. In the mid-1980s, the SQL was standardized by the ANSI and ISO standard, which has been widely adapted in lots of industries. Even today, despite the new technology, SQL remains the dominant language for relational database because its simplicity, power, and features. Now, let's talk about why SQL is so important. So at once, SQL is decided for efficient data management. It allows the organizations to retrieve data and manipulate them more rapidly and accurately. SQL also helps with systematic data organizations, making data easier to access and analyze. More importantly, SQL supports data integrities and transactions, including ACID compliance, which means that atomicity, consistencies, isolation, and durability, which is critical for enterprise systems like banking, healthcare, and video games. Don't worry, if you are not interested in history and the basic theories about SQL, feel free to skip them because the most important part is how we should write a SQL and use SQL efficiently, which is the next slide. So next, let's talk about the basic structure of SQL query. So SQL is made up of different statements and clauses work together to communicate with databases. Each part of a query have its special purpose, and the main queries includes select, from, where, group by, and order by I. Besides, SQL is case insensitive. Although keywords are written at the uppercase for readability, you could write keyword in lower cases. And since SQL follows a consistent syntax rule, both beginners and experienced developers can write queries that's very easy to understand and maintain. Okay, so we have a basic understanding of what SQL is and why SQL is used in database. Now let's practice using SQL. So first, we will talk about the very simple stuff, select. The select commands is super simple. We just retrieve the data from the database and or data tables. But which tables we need to retrieve the data from? That is the from commands. So now we have the tables called example.dbo.employees. So let's run the select star from this table. By the way, the stars represents all columns. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this is the output that we have. So now let's see what happened if we just want the employee names and departments. Simple, right? We just specifies the column name. So we say select employee name, department from the data table called example.dbo.employees. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we have these two columns. Okay, some people may say, what happens if we need to filter those data? For example, what if we just need the people whose department is ID? Then we just say where department equals to IT. Nope, it's not here. Let's press. Okay, so we have the employees whose department is ID. Now we have a basic understanding of the select from and where clause in SQL, which is the very basis of SQL. In next videos, we will talk more about the basic commands of SQL, like how we use them to retrieve the relevant data from the database. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you like it, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you next time.